The Browns are hiring Ken Dorsey as their next offensive coordinator, according to league sources. So let's unpack this hire and let's talk about what it means and what to expect and what not. But welcome into an at-home edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, filming from my kitchen as I just watched Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs take down the Ravens. But now let's talk about Dorsey coming over to Cleveland. So let's kind of begin today's show off by talking about Ken Dorsey as a coach, his background, and sort of what to expect and get to know the former Cleveland Browns quarterback back in like 2006, 2007-ish. And then we'll talk about whether or not I think this is a good hire and if it's a good fit with Kevin Stefanski and whatnot. But let's get through the background on Ken Dorsey. So he was the Bills offensive coordinator for the last two-ish seasons. He got fired after 10, 11 weeks of the 2023 season after I think the Broncos game on Monday Night Football is when they moved on from Ken Dorsey. So before that, he was the Bills passing game coordinator. He was their quarterbacks coach, and he did a tremendous job in aiding in the development of Josh Allen, and that ultimately landed the OC job once Brian Daboll went over to the Giants. But before that, he was the Carolina Panthers quarterbacks coach, and then before that, he played at the U, he played for the Niners, the Browns, and I think he went to the CFL as well, but I don't remember where he went to the CFL. Now, that's the background on Ken Dorsey. So he's got lots of NFL experience. He played in this league as a quarterback, so he knows the position well. And ultimately, this OC hire was never about, in my eyes, bringing in a new offensive coordinator to bring in a new offense, right? That was not the objective of this hire. If you look at other openings throughout this league that moved on from their offensive coordinator, like the Eagles and like the Bears, that was to bring in more than just some new ideas, right? That was to bring in like, we need a major jump start. We have a flat tire and our engine is leaking. We need some help bad. For the Browns, it was more about, listen, with Deshaun Watson and Alex Van Pelt under 2 years of that marriage, we just didn't see enough results to feel confident about running it back for a third season. Was that all on AVP? No, not necessarily. He may have been the scapegoat, if you will, but this is a results-driven league, and there were not enough results for AVP to stick around for a third season. So the Browns are bringing in Ken Dorsey, who I think is pretty familiar with having a quarterback that likes to run with the football, but also has a big play factor. So now let's kind of switch gears and talk about Ken Dorsey coming over to Cleveland after coaching Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson are not the same type of quarterback, but they are much similar QBs than, say, Deshaun Watson and like Jared Goff, okay? So there's much more similarities between Allen and Watson that Dorsey can come in with having some experience of knowing how to push the right buttons after having a mobile quarterback in Buffalo and going to Cleveland where Deshaun Watson is not a Lamar Jackson-esque quarterback, right? He is not someone that wants to run with it once that pocket starts to collapse a little bit. Watson wants to hold on to that ball. He wants to make the big throw down the field. So Dorsey comes over, and when I first heard the news of Ken Dorsey was hired as the Browns OC, I didn't jump off the couch. I didn't love it, like gut reaction initially, because I felt like once the Bills moved on from Ken Dorsey, they actually had some maybe more success with Joe Brady as their interim offensive coordinator. But if you dive into the deep analytical numbers, that's not necessarily the case. One thing in Buffalo that was really harped on this season and really magnified was EPA, okay? What's EPA in English? Because that's one of those like analytic terms that people toss around that I don't think everyone fully understands what EPA even really means, okay? It means expected points added. So basically in layman's terms, if you have 1st and 10 and you run for 3 yards and you get 2nd to 7, that goes down as a 3-yard rush. If you have 3rd and 1 and you rush for 3 yards, that goes down as a 3-yard rush. One got you a first down, one got you to 2nd and 7. So what EPA tries to do is take the plays, but then also incorporate the down and distance and where you were on the field to know based on that play, we think that's going to add this many points to your drive. But the key part of EPA is expected, Meaning it's not a guarantee. It's just a belief that this play is expected to add you this many points because you were backed up into 3rd and 20 at your own 5-yard line and you picked up a 21-yard gain. That is much more valuable than a 21-yard gain on 1st and 10. So that's kind of the nucleus of EPA. And the Bills had a really good EPA. Like, they were making big plays in tough spots all the time, right? Remember in the playoff game last week, Josh Allen sideline throws. Like, that's where EPA is born and bred. The issue with the Buffalo Bills was they just couldn't finish the drives. It's expected points added, right? It's not guaranteed points added. And that's ultimately why Ken Dorsey was ousted in Buffalo, because they were able to move the ball well, but right around the 50 or so yard line, they had no ground game whatsoever with Dorsey as the offensive coordinator. And Sean McDermott's a defensive coach, so you really can't put blame on him too much for micromanaging. I'm sure a Bills beat reporter would do a much better job of illustrating and explaining why things tended to go downhill as soon as the Bills crossed the 50-yard line. But they had no issue with getting big plays and chunks of yards and moving down the field. They just couldn't finish drives. And that's why they had that stretch before they fired Ken Dorsey of losing a lot of games. And ultimately, they got hot at the end of the year, and we know how far they went. So now with that in mind, Dorsey comes to Cleveland, and he's there to maximize Deshaun Watson. And I think Ken Dorsey can come in, and he can do a good job as a non-play caller, because I assume Kevin Stefanski is still going to retain play calling rights of let's get creative. Let's get in the lab and let's spend Monday through Saturday putting together the best game plan possible to get Deshaun Watson earlier in the game moving quicker. Because Watson had his podcast interview with his QB coach, Quincy Avery, and he kind of, I wouldn't say called out Adam the Bull, that's not accurate, but he acknowledged that Adam the Bull talked about how Deshaun Watson doesn't like the first 15 scripted plays. And Watson was saying, like, that's not true. It's just I do better as the season goes along and as the game goes along, right? The first quarter of the season and the first quarter of the game are not Watson's strengths compared to the second half of the season and the fourth quarter of a game. And we saw that in the last time Watson played against the Ravens. 14 for 14 in the second half. Completed an incredible comeback. So Dorsey comes in with, I think, one major goal, and that is let's stop getting the best out of Watson for 30 minutes, the second half. Can we make Deshaun Watson the second half player all 4 quarters, or at least more than we're getting right now? That's got to be priority number one for the offensive coordinator job is, hey, we got to get Watson going earlier. And I know that he has not necessarily thrived under the 15 first scripted plays. I mean, go look at the freaking Steelers game this past season and the Ravens game. Like, not great starts for number 4, right? So that's got to be mission number one is, yes, surface level it is, we need to do a better job of maximizing our quarterback Deshaun Watson. Dig a little bit deeper, we need to do a better job of getting more out of Watson in the first half of games. And I think Ken Dorsey has shown in Buffalo that he has the big play itch and the big play factor with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. He just couldn't really finish off drives. And don't worry, at that point, hand the baton over to Kevin Stefanski, and he can finish off drives because the Browns had a pretty good red zone offense this past season. So Ken Dorsey comes to Cleveland as their next offensive coordinator. Overall, I am not too bummed about this hire. That's a little harsh too. I'm just not over the moon about it necessarily because I think there was something to him getting fired in Buffalo for a reason. But I can warm up to the idea, as I'm sure I'll see more encouraging Twitter takes and tweets and things like that. But let me know down below in the comment section how you would grade this hire. A, B, C, D, or F. Chime in down below. We're going to sign off and let you guys enjoy the rest of the championship round here. 49ers, Lions. How about this? 2 questions for you guys to wrap the show. Who you got? San Francisco or Detroit? I'm going 49ers.